So what you've referred a couple times to the elusive follow through. What what type of content have you do you have there so far?
So I got a lot about minimalism. That's one of the things that I really tried to start to do in the beginning. I tried to teach minimalism because for me, one of the things I think that triggers my depression is if there's just a ton of stuff. So like it's if there's a ton of stuff on my calendar or if there's a ton of stuff in my surroundings. Like I have to have simplicity. I have to feel like everything's manageable or else I get overwhelmed and then I just start to kind of like lose it. And I was telling Mike yesterday that I've gotten to a point now where I can feel if it's coming on and I know that I'm going to shut down. And so the minimalism was the thing that I started trying to push. But then I realized, well, there's so much more to it. It's about health. It's about, finding that me time. It's about how to get your family to help around the house. So, like we were talking about earlier, I am kind of trying to evolve into something a little more specific. But there's a lot on there about my own journey with depression. There's one particular post about some suicidal things that I had happen in as a teenager. And then some of the postpartum stuff that I had felt. I put a lot out there. Like I said earlier, I feel like it needs to be talked about more because it's just not talked about enough. And people feel alone, like they have nowhere to turn to. So there's a lot on there about relationships and about your home. And
we do some fun stuff.
We do. The podcast.
Would you rather questions?
Yeah, the podcast is where the fun stuff happens. But I'm mostly talking about the blog on the actual website.
Yeah, sorry. I was looking at your pretty face. I was distracted.
Anyway. But yeah, the podcast is where the fun stuff happens, where we talk about, we have a lot of laughs and share stories about being parents and marriage and that kind of thing.
If you listen to it, forgive us for the first episode. It's not the best.
Well, that's when you're getting your feet wet, trying to figure it out.
We pitched the whole meal prep.
Which is a course I'm offering.
Yeah.
There are a couple courses that I'm offering about minimizing your home, how to get your family to help, and then the grocery savings, the budgeting course. So.
And what kind of responses have you had with those?
None. But that's because I'm not a marketer. I'm an accountant. Yeah. So I have to hire a marketer.
I feel you.
Yeah.
I feel you. Yeah. I'm not a marketer either.
Yeah. Like I even had a free course and I tried to push it and nobody got it. It's a free course. I can't even sell something that's free, Gert. Oh, man.
I really appreciated your blog, and I've listened to, I'll be honest, I've listened to most of the episodes of your podcast. I think there's a couple that I skipped. I was like, okay, this isn't really relevant to me right now,
Sure.
that kind of thing. But I really appreciate the openness and the honesty that you bring in your blog. I remember reading that one post where you did talk about your struggles with depression and how that had gotten to the point of being suicidal, and my heart went out to you reading that because we've been friends for so long, and you were one of my best friends back in high school, and just I felt bad at the same time. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a horrible friend because I didn't know things were that bad. Like I knew you had some challenges with depression and things, but I had no idea things were that bad. And to be honest, I don't know how I would have responded if I had known at that age, because obviously we all grow as we get older. And I think I'm, as most people would be, a lot better equipped to deal with that nowadays than I would have been as a teenager. But there's a part of me that's going, I didn't know. I feel so bad.
Well, nobody knew. You get good at hiding stuff like that.
Sure, sure. And that's the way I had to remind myself,
Yeah.
because I was going, I was a horrible friend because I didn't know.
No.
And then I reminded
No.
myself, yeah, nobody knew. Yeah. So, but no,
Nobody knew.
that, like I said, I really appreciate that openness, that honesty, because, like we mentioned earlier, that helps to dispel the stigma and helps to bring it out into the open so that people do know that is a struggle, and it is. I hesitate to use the word normal, but it's common.
It
It's a
is.
common thing.
Yeah.
Most of the women that have been significant in my life in one way or another, whether it's been romantically or good friends, have struggled with depression.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, for many of them, it's also been um, it's been, I don't want to say paired with or caused by, because I don't want to try and get that specific with it, but many of them have also dealt with abuse, and
Mm-hmm.
it horrifies me, the things that so many people have gone through,
Yeah.
and that they continue to deal with mental health concerns.
Yeah. I think those are the kinds of things that I've been fortunate that I've never dealt with abuse by any means, but I know that those kinds of things can trigger depression to come on where it might not have normally come on. And it's interesting that you say women because, of course, men are affected by depression. There are many men who have it, but there are many more women that have it. And I think it's because we naturally feel like we need to take on the weight of the world and we need to do all the things perfectly and we need to make sure that, like Mike said, we need to manage everything. And it can get overwhelming to the point where you're like, I can't do this anymore. It's too big of a burden to bear. And so a lot of women tend to just naturally, I think, are afflicted by that because of our tendency to want to do everything. So,
Yeah, I think I can't remember the exact quote right now, but I remember a quote that I heard a couple of years ago. I think it was about crises in general, specifically mental health concerns. But I think it definitely applies to depression. But basically, it's that the demands simply outweighed our resources.
yep.
I think that plays a big part for a lot of people.
And that's why that self-care is so important because I heard this analogy once where women are like vases, like a tall glass vase. And we tend to feel like we need to move the vase around so that we can spill a little water out here to help people and a little water over here to help people. But the more you spin around and move your vase, it's gonna fall and break. And so the important thing is to just constantly be filling up your vase with the water because eventually all the water will come up to the top of the vase and it'll just overflow and water everything else around it. And so it's a good analogy to think about. And this could apply to anyone, not just women or, men or whatever with depression, but anyone. I think the more you are willing to put into your own vase, the more help you want to give yourself, then it'll eventually overflow and water everyone else around it.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting analogy. I don't think I've heard that one before, but I can see that. Another thing that I think may be connected, and I'm no mental health professional by any means.
Yeah, neither am I.
But I think that there's a connection between empathy and depression.
Yes.
I see people who are more empathetic tend to experience depression more than those who are maybe not so empathetic.
I agree. I agree fully. I'm definitely an
Maybe
empath.
that's my problem.
No.
You're fine.
I'm definitely an empath, and I think that's because we take on everyone else's feelings, everyone else, and my daughter also is an empath, and people who have troubles tend to be drawn to her. They're drawn to me as well because they feel they can sense that safe zone. And it's safe for them, but for us it tends to get a little scary sometimes because we take their problems on as our own. And you're right, that causes more depression.
Yeah, very true. My daughter and I are both empaths, and as empathic as I am, I think she's 3 times as empathic as I am, 10 times.
Yeah.
And I know that's something that she struggles with a lot. So.
Yeah. And it's hard as a parent to watch that, but you have to sometimes, I guess.
Yeah, and I will say though that is one thing that is a bond between us, or helps there to be that bond, is because this is one thing where I kind of know what she's going through.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot of things that she's going through. I've never been a teenage girl. I've never dealt with some of those issues that she deals with. But I can do my best to empathize with her, and the fact that she knows that I'm an empathic person and empathetic definitely helps. It's something that we do have in common.
Yeah. And I'm sure she gets the strength from that too.
Hope so. So what kind of things do you do for self-care?
Hang out with this guy.
Hello.
Is that really self-care?
Actually, no. I love to snuggle on the couch. Every time he comes home from work, I'm like, come on, let's go snuggle. We're gonna go watch. We just finished watching the Falcon. What was it? The Winter Soldier, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series. And we'll go through series together. We watched our New Girl and some other ones that we watched together. But just sitting on the couch, being by him, I think I kind of feed off of his strength in a way. I kind of feed off of his calm, and that's helpful for me. Other things, like I said, the running, and it's changed from stage to stage. As I've evolved as a mom, my self-care has also evolved. When the kids were little, it was getting away. It was doing that running. There have been other things where there's been scrapbooking or other crafts. Then it was going to school, which actually doesn't seem like self-care because it's school. But I love school. I love learning, and I love being a student. And so that was kind of self-care for a long time. And I got very involved in school. I was in leadership positions and stuff like that. So it's nice for me to feel like I was contributing. I don't know, what are your self-care? He likes to work on his garage.
Yeah, that's meditation in some ways.
Old speakers.
Yeah, I like to work out and lift weights. I do find calm and working in the garage and putting something together, or figuring out something, if I'm troubleshooting something. Cooking. I like cooking. Things like that. But I think the biggest thing that helps me center myself is helping other people. I'm definitely a service-oriented person. I know sometimes it drives Lindsay nuts when I've got 5 things in the garage and 3 people's cars that aren't mine in the driveway, and someone's like, hey, can you come help? I'm like, sure.
I'm like, finish your project first.
You can't finish that one first? But yeah, for the self-care bit, I've got a few close friends that I can, confide in and talk to. Definitely debriefing at the end of the day with Lindsay. Bouncing ideas off, working on stuff with Lindsay is always fun.
Yeah, we're remodeling our house. That's been some fun self-care. Except that it's taken forever.
She's my little Joanna Gaines. And I'm her...
Chip. Demo day.
I'm that guy. But yeah, I mean, those are the things I do to hit my reset button is, you know, just make progress in something.
Mhm. Interesting. I remember you being a good cook, Mike. I knew that about you. I've
Well,
known that
thank you.
about you for years. One thing I didn't know is that you're so service oriented. Um, I, I I've kind of seen hints of that through social media, but I never really thought about it much. Lindsay hasn't posted about you too much on social media, uh,
I actually do a
but
lot. Way more
uh,
than usual.
but yeah, how does serving others? You said it kind of helps you um, with. It's almost a form of self care for you, but
Hmm.
what other things have you seen service do, or how has it impacted um, yourselves as well as other people?
Well, for me, I mean, I've been told, and I, since recognized it, is that it sets a good example for my kids, for me to be that way. And I think the biggest thing is that it gives me a sense of accomplishment. When if someone needs help and I'm able to give it to them, or provide them with something that they couldn't have done on their own. But the biggest thing is like teaching someone how to do whatever they can't do. That if they need help moving a piano or something, I don't expect them, now come here, let me show you how I do it. Nothing like that. But if they have a leak in their house or something mechanical, I try to talk them through it versus just doing it for them, because I really do, I don't know, take pride in helping people by teaching people.
Well, and you've taught our kids, like he mentioned, it rubs off on our kids. Dallin and I walked, he ran a race yesterday. I did a 5K and he did a 10K. And when we were leaving, there were some people with their hood up on their car and they were trying to figure out something. And Dallin's first instinct at 18 years old is to go over and see if there's anything he can do to help. And that's the example that all of our kids have seen. And I personally have seen. I mean, I've always tried to be kind of a giving person, but being married to Mike has really changed me in a way to be more outwardly minded, and trying to see how we can help other people. He's way better at it than I am because I think it comes to him naturally, but for me it's a little more forced. But because of him being that way, it's come to our kids naturally too. And it's nice to see our kids thinking about others other than themselves. And it gives them an opportunity to see, wow, they've got struggles, and maybe my struggles aren't as bad as I thought they were, because it gives them an opportunity to see that life isn't, when you're a teenager, life's so horrible, but that gives them an opportunity to see that life is actually pretty great.
One of the one of my most memorable experiences from when I was younger, I don't know exactly how old, but I remember my dad, when he was physically able, would take me to service projects all the time. And a lot of the time it was helping people move, but different things. But I remember one time we were at a service project. We'd been helping someone move, and we'd gotten done with the move, and the person that the dad of the family came and was thanking everyone for helping. And I remember one person um, who is one of my favorite people in the whole world, um, Paul Hyde.
Hmm.
I remember him when the dad thanked him. He turned around and said, "No, thank you for the opportunity to serve." And that made an impression on me that has stuck with me my entire life. It's probably been 30 years since then. maybe not quite that, but it seems like it has been. Um, that service oriented heart, that people heart, servant's heart. There we go.
Yeah.
Having that desire to serve others and help them, and looking at service as an opportunity, looking at it in that way, just it made such an impression on me.
I agree. And I wish more people thought that way, because our country would be so much better, so much better if everyone thought, how can I bless somebody's life today, instead of how can somebody bless my life today? If there was less of that and more of the how can I bless others, I think it would be such a better place to be.
The odd part, the backside of that is, like, I have no problem helping anybody, but when I need help, man, that drives me nuts. I can't stand it. I don't want help. And it's not that I don't need it, because sometimes I do need it. I just don't, I don't know. It's weird, because I have no problems giving service and helping people, even if it takes a long time. But I don't want to bother anyone, to give their time to me. I feel like their time is more valuable. Go do something else, It's weird that way.
Yeah, for sure. I totally see where you're coming from with that. And I feel like that kind of ties into what I was just sharing that Paul Hyde had said, which was, thank you for letting us serve. And maybe that's part of why he said that, was because he knows that sometimes it is hard for people to ask and to let someone help. So that's an interesting connection there, Mike. Thank you.
Good job.
What's next?
What's next for the blog, or for us, or
hopefully talking about pick it, whatever.
Hopefully passing the CPA exams.
CPA exams. Kids moved out. She's my sugar mama. I can quit. And we've got 1,000 projects to take care of.
We have a bus that Mike's fixing up, and we would love to, put this house up for rent and travel in our bus. And there's so much, we've got a good, 50 years ahead of us, right?
Easy.
At least.
If I die.
So we've got lots of plans, lots of fun things in the works.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what about with the Elusive Follow-Through?
Well, like I said, I would love to be able to get it, going up again. It's hard when you work, I work full time, and I'm a tax accountant, so there's what we call busy season.
Sure.
And it's tax season, and which is usually just from January to April, but for me, I work on partnerships, and so typically they extend, and so then in the fall, I have another busy season. And I'm lucky that I'm on a part-time schedule, but even on an 80% schedule, I'm expected to work an average of 44 billable hours every week on 80%. And that's just the billables. That doesn't include the internal meetings and all of that kind of thing. So when you're full-time, that busy season, you're working anywhere between 60 to 80 hours every week. And so it's hard to fit in the time to try and pass the CPA exams or work on the blog, or, but with the blog, what I've done is I'll wake up at like 4:30 in the morning, and I have a routine that I follow in the mornings, and then I use that time to kind of, try and figure out what I'm going to do. So my hope is, after this interview and after, the evolution that we talked about earlier, and kind of honing in on what I'm trying to do, my hope is to pick it up again and develop finish the courses, and just post more on social media, and just really try and get the word out. If nothing else, just to help others, not even necessarily to make money on it, But even if I can just help somebody avoid some of the pitfalls that I fell into, and like you mentioned earlier, I'm not claiming to be any kind of mental health person. The first piece of advice I would give anybody is go see a doctor. Talk about medication, go see a therapist, whatever you need to do. But here are some things that I have found over the last 21 years of being a mom that have helped me learn how to cope and learn how to accomplish the things that I have accomplished. Because it hasn't been easy, running a marathon, running a half marathon, or getting your master's or your bachelor's while your kids are little. These are not easy things for anyone. And then when you add on depression, which makes things even harder, there are a lot of things that I've had to learn over the years on how to be able to do those and get those things done. So that's what I'm hoping to share with others. What about you?
Just along for the ride.
It's been a fun ride.
I get to hang out. That's it.
He's my arm candy.
Yeah, we don't want to have a podcast about diesel mechanics.
It might be fun.
Actually, I'm not a mechanical type guy. I'm the type of person who prefers to work behind a computer or that kind of thing rather than working with my hands. It's just not my thing. But I do enjoy hearing about experiences. I remember you've mentioned that you work as a diesel mechanic. I knew a guy 20 years ago that was a diesel mechanic, and he actually also was from Utah, or was from Utah, I should say, since you're not originally from there. But anyway, I remember he would have stories, and a lot of times it was about the different trucks that he was working on, and there were a few people that we were working around that all knew about trucks, and it kind of got to be a competition. When we're driving down the road, who can first identify the truck? Is it a Peterbilt? Is it a Kenworth? What kind of truck is it? And start reeling off the specs on it, and that it develops into stories, and it was not as boring as some might think.
I agree. He comes home with some doozies from work. Where I'm like, what?
There's been some crazy stuff.
Yeah. That might be kind of fun.
Yeah. You could do an episode every now and then, Mike, about stories that you've had.
Yeah. Stories from the road.
Sure.
Yeah. Stories are interesting. I think stories are a great way to communicate different things. I've got all these different stories that are coming to mind, stories and thoughts that are bubbling through and passing through right now that most of them just really aren't relevant, so I won't share because they're not relevant at all. But one thing that I will say is I'm reading a book right now, and it's a kind of pop science book in the sense that it's meant for the general public, and so there's not a lot of math to it. It's just a lot of concepts and stories and what's the word I'm looking for, analogies and that kind of thing rather than the math. But it's interesting because the last couple of chapters have been about the way the brain works and the role stories have played in developing human civilization, and how that's fit in with religion and the way the mind works and all of that. And it's been really interesting to see just how so many things fit together, and the importance of stories and of communication and those sorts of things.
I agree.
What's next for you, Garrett?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Um, Life, Liberty, and Pursuit of Happiness project. That's kind of my thing right now that I've been putting all of my time and effort into. Um, I have up on my website. I don't want to turn it into like a sales pitch, but um, I have backing up a little bit actually. Um, the last several years I worked in human resources and specifically was safety manager for a company that provides group homes and other services for people with disabilities. As a safety manager, one of the things I was in charge of was our emergency preparedness planning. And so I was writing an emergency preparedness plan for our company to train all the staff on, but then also helping with individual adaptations for different homes for different people, um, and that sort of thing. So that's kind of a thing that I have kind of taken and adapted. Um, and so on the website, I currently have some emergency preparedness planning, just kind of general stuff as far as talking about different disasters and how to prepare for those. Um, I'm working on a deluxe version of that with some additional information. Um, I have some T-shirts and other home goods and things for sale on the website as well. Many of those, they're all branded with my logo and everything, but a lot of them are kind of fun and pithy quotes from people who passed on a couple hundred years ago. That way we avoid any problems with copyright or anything like that. Um,
They can't
so
argue.
what's that?
They can't argue. I didn't say that.
Right. um, but one thing I've really been enjoying is I've been taking classes for certification as a life coach, and so um, the kind of the purpose and mission of the Life, Liberty, and Pursuit of Happiness project has been to help people and empower them to build their best lives. And so I feel like taking life coaching and adding that in is a perfect fit with that.
Yeah.
And because of my personal experience as a safety manager, emergency preparedness manager for that company, one thing I want to do is I know there's a lot of people out there that want to be prepared for emergencies and disasters, but they don't know where to start. And so I'd really like to kind of pioneer the niche of preparedness coaching. That's one niche that I've kind of done some research to see if there's anything like that out there. And I haven't been able to find anything. I found a couple people who are preparedness consultants, but that's a little bit different than coaching. And so I'm happy to do both, to do consulting and coaching. Um, but anyway, that's kind of my next thing. That's where I'm headed, is implementing that coaching, and as well as the kind of deluxe version of the planning if you just want to buy do-it-yourself planning documents. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, good luck with that.
thank you.
Mhm.
Hopefully that'll continue to develop and grow. And I'm really enjoying doing the podcast slash YouTube videos, and talking to people and seeing how they are building their lives and what they've done to um, build their best life, and how they're continuing to grow as a person. And the 5 pillars that I've kind of based the Life, Liberty, Pursuit of Happiness project on are preparedness, education, advocacy, personal development, and career development. And so, um, it's pretty easy, I think, with just about any interview to touch on at least one of those, if not more than one. So, we spent probably most of our time, I'd put it in the category today of personal development, but also, there's been some talk about careers, and there's been talk about um, education. And so, that's what I enjoy. That's kind of my passion. is helping people build their best lives. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad I could be a part of it. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm glad you guys could make the time. I know you guys are both very busy.
Well, we'll make time for people like you. We make time for good friends.
Oh, you're too kind.
Yeah, but thank you for the chance.
Oh, yeah.
It's good to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Been
definitely.
too
Good chat.
long.
It has. It has been. Yeah, we need to catch up. You and me and
Well, it was
Sarah and
funny.
Sarah and Martin and
Yeah.
everybody.
It was funny that, did you know that when we were in Bend, it was, well, almost 2 years ago, I think, but the girls and I just decided to head to Salem for a day, and we were going to Wallery's for lunch, and Garrett and his daughter just happened to be driving through the parking lot right as we were walking
Oh
into
yeah,
Wallery's.
you mentioned that to me.
Yeah, and it was like, what? You know, so we got
That's
a chance
awesome.
to visit for a little bit, and
Yeah, a little bit
that was fun.
serendipity.
Yep.
Nice.
All right. Well, I know I am a get up early kind of person anymore because of having a daughter. My ex-wife did not like getting up early, so I kind of took on that early riser role,
That's
and
nice.
it's stuck with me. Even though my daughter's a teenager now, it's stuck with me. I'm an early person, but I know you guys have to get up even earlier than I do. And not only that, you're an hour ahead of me, so I will let you go. But if you'd remind our listeners where they can find you if they want to
Yes.
look into
Please,
that
yes.
more.
Please go to the elusivefollowthrough.com. I'm not going to spell it again because that was just
That was fun for
lame.
me.
But it's the elusive, like something that cannot be found, follow through, because it's hard to find your follow through sometimes. And then you can also find me on Instagram, minimal_mama_Lindsay, Lindsay. I did get some spelling in there.
You're amazing.
And then
Now math for us.
2 + 2 is 4.
There it is.
Whoa.
I know.
What?
Major good math there. And then the Elusive Follow Through on iTunes and Spotify, Google Play,
Wherever you find your
wherever
podcast.
you find your podcasts. And then on Facebook, the Elusive Follow Through.
Cool.
So thanks,
All
Garrett.
right. Yeah, my pleasure, Lindsay. Thank you. And Mike, I have to tell you one story real quick that just popped
Okay.
back into my head. So follow through has always been a struggle for me as well. I think I mentioned that earlier. But I remember going to a training one time, and this was when I was on my mission in Kentucky, or maybe I was in Ohio at the time. I think I was in Kentucky though. And there was one of the guys who was doing a training, and he was very different than most of the other people we were working with. He was trying to think how to put this. He had a very different personality, and just he was not a typical guy, even less typical than I am, because I'm not your average guy, but he was. I'm much more normal of a guy than he was, but he did a training one time on following up or following through, and he likened it to hair dye, and I don't remember exactly how he did it. I think it was something like hair dye, like the longer you leave it in, the better it sets and the better it colors the hair. And he was basically saying, if you follow up with people, if you follow up on what you're doing, then that's the equivalent of letting the hair dye set in. Anyway, like I don't remember for sure, but here we are, like 2024, 2 dozen, like somewhere in there, like guys who are pretty normal guys who've never had their hair dyed, don't really care about hair dye. And here's this guy who not only is training about hair dye, he actually did a demonstration and dyed another guy's hair.
Wow.
And we're all just sitting there just watching, going, "Oh my goodness, what in the world is going on, and why do I care?" And it was just it stuck out. I will say that I remember it 20
Yeah,
years
you're never
later.
gonna forget it.
Yeah,
Maybe that was the idea.
life lessons.
So yeah, for sure. So going back to stories,
Yeah.
making interesting stories, the more we can be creative and put things in story form, the more people are going to remember. So
True.
hopefully people will um, remember what we've talked about and be able to follow through on things. And as we try and build our own stories and write our own stories through life. So I don't think I quite pulled that together like I wanted to, but
Well, if
I
nothing
talked
else,
about the hair dye story.
yeah, I was gonna say, if nothing else, they're gonna remember this interview with the hair dye.
Yeah.
So perfect.
All right. Well, on that note,
Yeah.
oh, thanks, guys. I appreciate
Of
it.
course.
Yeah,
Of
thank you.
course.
It's
Our
been
pleasure.
fun. Talk to you later.
Okay.
Okay,
Bye.
Bye.